Trial resumed. Jury not present.
The court said, "Good morning."
Mr. Ferguson said, "Good morning."
The court said, "Please make your appearances."
Mr. Ferguson said, "Good morning, Your Honor." Micah Ferguson, Juliana Murray, Justin Horton for the government. Also joined by our paralegal Isabel Loftus.
Mr. Skirick said, "Good morning, Your Honor." Scott Skirick, Sabrina Schroff, and Matt Barkin on behalf of Mr. Gov't, who also joins us here at counsel's table.
The court said, "Please be seated." By letter dated June 12, 2024, the government states that it will call Samuel Roberts, the head of financial intelligence at Gov't, which provided certain services to the Himalaya Exchange. The government expects that Mr. Roberts will testify about his participation in Govt's reviews of its business relationship with the Himalaya Exchange. Specifically, Govt conducted 2 reviews: a preliminary due diligence inquiry upon beginning its business relationship with the exchange in 2021, and another more searching review after receiving a subpoena related to the exchange. As part of this second review, Mr. Roberts communicated with exchange representatives, evaluated information provided by the Himalaya Exchange and from public sources, and recommended that Gov't terminate the relationship with the exchange. By letter dated June 12, 2024, the defense states that certain of Mr. Roberts's anticipated testimony about factual information he gathered may be admissible. However, the defense seeks to preclude the government from eliciting Mr. Roberts's opinions as to whether Himalaya coin and Himalaya dollar are cryptocurrencies, whether the Himalaya Exchange is a cryptocurrency exchange, and the design/functions of Himalaya coin, Himalaya dollar, and the Himalaya Exchange. Early this morning, the government filed a response stating that it does not intend to ask Roberts his opinion whether Himalaya coin and Himalaya dollar are cryptocurrencies, or whether the Himalaya Exchange is a cryptocurrency exchange. Rather, the government represents that Roberts would be testifying about what he observed, what he was told by the exchange, and how that information impacted the review he conducted, and informed his recommendation that Gov't terminate its relationship with the exchange. To the extent that there is still a dispute between the parties, the court agrees with defendant that whether H coin and H dollar are cryptocurrencies, and whether the Himalaya Exchange is a cryptocurrency exchange are questions that require scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge within the meaning of Rule 702. Indeed, both parties have noticed experts to opine about these 2 questions. Mr. Roberts, by contrast, has not been noticed as an expert witness. Accordingly, the government shall not elicit his opinions as to these 2 topics. The court shall not broadly preclude Mr. Roberts's testimony about the design and function of Himalaya coin, Himalaya dollar, and the Himalaya Exchange. He may state that he recommended that Gov't terminate its relationship based on his findings, but he may not offer general information about the characteristics of cryptocurrency, nor may he offer an opinion as to whether H coin, H dollar were cryptocurrencies and whether the exchange was a cryptocurrency exchange. Is there anything further?
Mr. Ferguson said, "One matter from the government, Your Honor. We wanted to alert the court so it's aware. We're discussing this with the defense actively. But we wanted to let the court know to back up, for context. One of the government's witnesses noticed for this week is Bo Collins. He was the CEO of Mercantile Bank. And as a refresher for Your Honor, Mercantile Bank was I think you could call it the digital bank. It was a Puerto Rico financial institution that Hamilton, the William J. entity, was going to acquire. Shortly before that acquisition, the government executed its seizure warrants on Hamilton's bank accounts. That was the seizure of the ultimately around $600 million or so. Mr. Collins was the CEO of Mercantile. The government was going to call him to testify sort of about the Himalaya Exchange was a client of Mercantile Bank and had bank accounts there. The government's going to call him to testify about that relationship and the proposed acquisition and then the ultimate seizure of the funds, which stopped the acquisition. After the acquisition, there was an arbitration between Mercantile and Hamilton. Like a private arbitration based on, to my understanding, like a contract dispute in the purchase of sale agreement. That was litigated in the arbitration. I think Mercantile won the arbitration. Ultimately filed for I don't know the correct term, a confirmation of the arbitration award in the SDNY. I'm not sure the status of that case. But the arbitration was done. We received in mid-April, we requested and then received in mid-April a production from Mercantile mid-April of this year. That was in response to our request for any testimony that Mr. Collins gave in the arbitration. We understood he had testified. We received from Mercantile I think you would call it the arbitration file. Your Honor. On quick review, it appears to be the filings by the parties in the arbitration. Perhaps some correspondence or discovery back and forth between the parties in the arbitration award, and the hearing transcript of the arbitration. I think it was a 2-day hearing. That production was mistakenly not produced to the defense, the mid-April of this year production. We learned that last night. We produced it to the defense immediately. While it was being uploaded, the government clicked through this production as fast as we could to get a sense of what is in there. That's what my understanding from that's my understanding what it is. We flagged what we thought was the most pertinent part of that for Mr. Collins, which is I believe in the arbitration they did direct testimony via affidavit and then got crossed at the hearing. So we flagged his affidavit, the other Mercantile employee affidavits we saw, and we flagged the hearing transcript. Like the Bates numbers for those, Your Honor. Unfortunately, it is a large number of pages. It's around 16,000 pages. My understanding is that is about 754 documents. I think, from my clicking through very quickly. My sense is the reason the page numbers is so much larger than the document count is. Your Honor could think of like a motion for summary judgment where a party is filing a brief to the arbitrators and attaching as exhibits. Long contracts about the arbitration and due diligence documents on Mercantile, that sort of thing. But there's very long exhibits to these filings. That's my sense, on very quick review of this. We have not determined yet, although we want to further review this to be further helpful to the defense on the contents of this production. But we had received from Mercantile prior to this very voluminous production already in response to a grand jury subpoena that had requested any and all documents related to Hamilton and specified, including any proposed merger transaction. That was our grand jury subpoena request. In response to that, they had given us previously and we had previously produced around 16,000 documents, which was around 79,000 pages. Now we have not confirmed that the exhibits to these arbitration filings are duplicative of the prior grand jury subpoena productions. Topically, they should be. But that's one thing that we want to look at to see if we can flag anything for the defense that may be new. Or anything else that, in our judgment, may be particularly pertinent to Mr. Collins's testimony or that we want to flag for them so they can take a closer look at that. As I said, we're also just generally discussing this with the defense. We're open to moving Mr. Collins's testimony to allow them more time to review this. And we don't have an agreement as to how to proceed with Mr. Collins. He is not testifying today no matter what. We're open to ideas on how best to accommodate it. We want to be efficient with the jury's time and the court's time. We're open to any number of options, including possibly, if the defense were open to this. Maybe Mr. Collins could do his direct on Friday but not get crossed until Monday. Give them additional time to review this production and his direct testimony transcript. Or even if they want us to just not call him until next week, we're open to this. We're discussing it. I just wanted to alert the court to the issue and, just as an FYI for this issue.
The court said, "Is there a table of contents for the grand jury documents and for the arbitration documents?"
Mr. Ferguson said, "There's not a table of contents, I don't believe so, Your Honor."
The court said, "Does the defense have anything to say?"
Mr. Skirek said, "Your Honor, I can only comment to this briefly. Mr. Kumraju is actually right now in the process of trying to assess these materials because, as Mr. Ferguson noted, we just got them late last night. So we're not at this point able to sort of give a substantive assessment of what we have. Obviously, we need to spend a little bit of time with it to be able to do that. But I would just note for the court. You know, that Mr. Collins was on the government's witness list that they sent us on Saturday morning. So he was noticed, you know, over the weekend, and, you know, we're just receiving this information last evening. And, you know, as I said, Mr. Kumraju I think a little bit later today will, after he's had a chance to look at it, come and address the issue in more detail. I would just flag. In addition to the logistical issues that the government has already raised about Mr. Collins's testimony, you know, the sort of parallel issue that I think we may find ourselves, depending on how we handle Mr. Collins's testimony, with additional time at the end of the day tomorrow. It remains to be seen, obviously. We would all love if that were the case, if things moved that quickly. But to the extent that we do, we don't have any notice from the government as to who else they may call at this point to take that time. So again, this is happening in real time. We haven't had that much of a chance to discuss it with the government. But I just flagged that for the court.
Mr. Ferguson said, and we appreciate that, Your Honor. And that's something else we're happy to discuss with the defense and do everything we can to try and accommodate them. You know, we can't promise there won't be mistakes, but if we learn of them, we'll try and do the right thing when we do, and that's what we're hoping to do here.
The court said, "Don't you have a bevy of folks who can be comparing the two documents while you're on trial?"
Mr. Ferguson said, I'm not sure we have a bevy, but that is our plan, Your Honor. We're going to try and do that comparison and flag anything further for the defense.
The court said, "Is there anything further?"
Mr. Ferguson said, not from the government.
Mr. Skirek said, not from the defense, Your Honor.
The court said, "All righty. We'll reconvene at 9:30. Please have the witness on the stand at 9:29.
Mr. Ferguson said, yes, Your Honor.
Recess.
The court said, "Please have the jurors brought in."
Jury present.
The court said, "Please be seated. Good morning, jurors."
The juror said, "Good morning."
The court said, "We're going to continue with the direct examination of the witness. Please remember that you're still under oath. You may inquire."
Mr. Ferguson said, thank you, Your Honor.
Minran Wu resumed. Direct examination continued. By Mr. Ferguson.
Good morning, Ms. Wu.
Good morning.
And Ms. Wu, when we broke yesterday, we were discussing the farm loan program. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Did you participate in the farm loan program?
Yes.
And did you send money to your farm?
Yes.
How much did you send?
$20,000.
And approximately when did you send the $20,000?
August 2020.
And where did you send the $20,000?
Mountains of Spice, LLC, something like that.
And what was the name on the account that you used to send the money to Mountains of Spices?
Wonder Invest, LLC.
And in connection with that transfer, did you sign a loan agreement?
Yes, should be.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, could we show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit VN 39? Ms. Wu, is this the loan agreement?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit VN 39.
Mr. Skirek said, no objection.
The court said, "It is admitted."
Government's Exhibit VN 39 received in evidence.
Mr. Ferguson said, could we please publish that? All right. And Ms. Loftus, if we could zoom on the top half just to make the text larger for everyone. That's great.
By Mr. Ferguson.
All right. Ms. Wu, do you see at the top here it says loan agreement?
Yes.
And who is the borrower on this loan agreement?
MOS Farm, Mountains of Spice Farm.
And who's the lender?
Me.
What's the date for this loan agreement?
August 12, 2020.
And under loan amount, do you see it says $20,000?
Yes.
So focusing you on the paragraph 1A, there, use of proceeds, I'll go ahead and read that paragraph.
Okay.
So it says, use of proceeds. The loan proceeds advanced under this agreement is for the general working capital purposes of the borrower. And the borrower is the farm. Right, Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Wu, did you read that before or after you sent the money?
I cannot remember because at that time a lot of things just pushed together. We were so hurry and hectic, because they gave us 24 hours to 48 hours, anyway. Just a very short time to wait our bank account information, because they use several bank accounts. But they send each person different bank account. I don't know what they were. Just that we needed to wait for our own bank account. After that, we need to wire the money immediately. Because they said those bank accounts would be stopped at any time because of the CCP. And then we need to write an email to the email address they gave us, provided a lot of stuff they required. And then just after, just to send, we sent the email to the farm. We need to join a Telegram group. In that group, we needed to wait the confirmation from them about our money. So, very busy. Maybe just a little thing about the contract before send the money. But I don't think I had a lot of time to read it little by little, turn by turn.
And Ms. Wu, you explained yesterday that you understood this loan agreement was to get GTV stock. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And the use of proceeds does not mention GTV stock, right?
Yes.
What, if anything, were you told about why that was?
They said they couldn't write clearly about that in this contract, just because of the CCP. Because CCP always eyeing this group, they couldn't do that.
And who told you that?
Miles Gua said this. Xia Qidong also said this.
And remind us again what Xia Qidong's other name is.
Chongdao or Chongdao Vida.
What does that mean again?
Chongdao means an island, Vida is great brother.
And Ms. Wu, focusing on paragraph C of this contract. Do you see it says interest rate? What was the interest rate?
They said we borrowed our money to the farm, right? The farm should give us this interest. 3% each year.
Mr. Ferguson said, and Ms. Loftus, if we could now scroll down to page 7. And Ms. Wu, did you sign this contract?
Yes.
And who else signed it?
Xia Qidong.
And now what was the date you signed the contract, Ms. Wu?
August the 12th, 2020.
And what was the date that Xia Qidong signed the contract?
November 2nd, 2021.
Over a year later?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, now, Ms. Loftus, if we could scroll down to page 9. Ms. Wu, do you see it says name of entity and it says Wonder Invest, LLC?
Yes.
Can you remind us, what is Wonder Invest, LLC?
It's my own company.
Mr. Ferguson said, and if we could go to the next page, Ms. Loftus, please. All right. Now, Ms. Wu, do you see this says addendum at the top?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, and Ms. Loftus, maybe just to make it easier to read, could we blow up the top half? Okay. I'll just go ahead and read paragraph 1. So paragraph 1 says, Provision 1A of loan agreement shall be modified as to follows. The loan proceeds advanced under this agreement may be used by the borrower at its discretion without limitation, including but not limited for working capital, political activities, loaning out to other parties, and/or investment purposes. Ms. Wu, what, if anything, did Chongdao say about this addendum?
I don't remember.
Mr. Ferguson said, and if we could zoom out, please, Ms. Loftus, and go to page 12, just another couple pages down. Keep going, please. Okay. Just to focus on when the addendum was signed, Ms. Wu?
November 5th, 2021.
And that's when you signed it, correct?
Yes.
And what was the date that Xia Qidong signed this?
November 2nd, 2021.
And is that the same date that Xia Qidong signed or Chongdao signed the original loan agreement?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, okay. Now let's go back up, Ms. Loftus. Let's go back to page 12 of the document. And I'll ask you to please zoom, if you would, on paragraph 6, please. Okay. So I'll go ahead and read paragraph 6, Ms. Wu.
Okay.
It says, the borrower shall have the right to unilaterally terminate the loan agreement if the lender has committed or commits the following. A. Lender defames, libels, insults, humiliates, abuses, curses verbally or in writing, in public or secrecy, Mr. Wanguigwa aka Milesqua. B. Lender makes any statements or engages any conducts that are against the missions of the whistleblower movement, WM. For the purpose of this loan agreement, WM is defined as a combination of campaigns, actions, and platforms,
including GTV, designated to disclose the criminal activities of Chinese Communist Party, CCP, and spread the truth about CCP's atrocity for the purpose of achieving the total and complete destruction of the CCP. Or, C. Lender makes any statements or engages any activities that are against the missions of the new Federal State of China, NFSC. For the purpose of this note, NFSC is a semi-state sovereignty created and initiated by Mr. Milesqua and supported by anti-CCP communities on June 4, 2020 at New York with the mission of establishing a new China without CCP to promote the universal ideas of rule of law, freedom, and democracy to Chinese people. Ms. Wu, we discussed the original loan agreement. At the time you received the loan addendum in November 2021, did you read the addendum before signing it?
No.
Why didn't you read the addendum before you signed it?
At that time actually, I already thought about ask to refund.
And why did considering asking for a refund, why did that affect whether you read the contract? Or the addendum? Excuse me.
This was in November, right? Actually, I began to doubt this organization from April or May 2021. Because at that time SEC published the settlement with the GTV, so I went to the website. Read that documentation, then I felt something not right, also some other things together.
And we'll talk about those things in a few minutes, Ms. Wu.
Okay.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, if we could just zoom out and go back to page 12, I'm sorry. Page 14. Excuse me. So Ms. Wu, could you explain why, if at the time you were considering asking for a refund? Why you still signed this addendum?
If I didn't do this, I definitely would no chance to ask a refund.
And why do you say that?
First, I heard a lot of people said if they asked a refund, then they maybe, just maybe I cannot guarantee. Because I heard people said a lot of people already was expelled from their farms because of their refund request. Then
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, objection to the hearsay.
The court said, sustained.
Mr. Ferguson said, it's being offered for the effect of why she signed the addendum, Your Honor. Not for the truth of the out-of-court statement.
The court said, in that case then the answer stands.
By Mr. Ferguson.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wu. You were explaining why you signed the addendum even though you were thinking about asking for a refund.
And then I just thought I needed a safe way to do this. I hadn't defined a way at that time. Then I had to sign this first, and later, I think I will do something.
When you say do something, what do you mean?
Find a perfect opportunity to do this.
And when you say do this, what are you referring to, Ms. Wu?
Ask for a refund.
And we'll talk about it later, but did you ultimately ask for a refund from the farm loan?
Yes.
Okay. We'll turn to that in a moment. Ms. Wu, what, if any, volunteer work did you do related to farm loan transfers?
In the group. Just the farm, the MOS Farm established the group to do the translation job for documentations needed in a lawsuit.
And who was the lawsuit between?
Between MOS Farm and the Phoenix Farm.
And who was in charge of the Phoenix Farm?
At that time, should be Sarah Wei.
Now could you explain what sorts of documents were shared in the chat group that was created by MOS for this? At a high level. What sorts of documents were shared in that group?
Just all kinds of loan project from I don't know if all farms, but definitely from various farms of the world.
And who would send these documents to the chat group?
Zhang Yongbing and Xia Qidong were in charge of this group. Zhang Yongbing and his assistant distributed this documentation to us to do the translation.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, could we please publish what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 121? If we could publish it. Ms. Wu, who is this?
This is Zhang Yongbing.
And what was his role at the MOS Farm?
He was the legal group leader in the MOS Farm at that time.
And what was his position in the farms after that?
After that, he was ascended to the Himalaya Alliance and then to the Iron Blood Group.
Was.
The court said, does he go by any other name?
The witness said, Zhang Yongbing is his real name. His called name is Tanggong Chi Xia, Ph.
And Ms. Wu, could you spell Zhang Yongbing for the court reporter?
Zhang Yongbing. ZhangYongbing.
You said, Ms. Wu, he ascended to the Himalaya Alliance and the Iron Blood Group. What's the Iron Blood Group?
It should be the core of this organization, and all members are Miles Guo's helpers.
Mr. Ferguson said, all right. Ms. Loftus, if we can now show just the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit VN7. And Ms. Wu, you said Zhang Yongbing or his assistant shared the documents with this chat group, correct?
Yes.
Were some of the documents sent to you screenshots of text messages, Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Sorry. I didn't. Is this document now on your screen?
Yes.
Is this one of the documents that Zhang Yongbing or his assistant shared with the chat group?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit VN7.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, voir dire.
The court said you may. Voir dire examination.
By Mr. Skirik.
Ms. Wu, you didn't create this document, did you?
No.
Do you know when the document was created?
No.
Do you know who created it? And to be clear, I'm asking who created the document. Not who were what are the names of the people that show up in the document?
I don't know. Should be the Iron Blood Group people.
But you don't know.
Because they do this, no others can do this.
I understand. I'm asking you what you know, not to speculate on what may have happened.
Okay. I don't know.
Mr. Ferguson said, Your Honor, she answered the question.
Mr. Skirik said, We object.
The court said, overruled. It is admitted.
Mr. Ferguson said, Could we publish this, please, Ms. Loftus?
By Mr. Ferguson.
All right. Now.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, before Mr. Ferguson begins questioning, could we just have a brief sidebar?
The court said yes.
Continued on next page. At the sidebar.
Mr. Skirik said, So Your Honor. We have a continuing objection to this on the basis of hearsay and that it has Mandarin language in it. That's our objection.
Mr. Ferguson said, It's not hearsay. It was sent by an agent of Miles Guo to the MOS Farm. Clearly a statement of an agent. Second, it's a screenshot of a text that Miles Guo was in. I don't see how it could be hearsay. On the Mandarin translation, I'm happy the vast majority of this is in English. I'm happy to just ask her about the English language portions. We don't have a lot of questions on this. And if we want, we can get the limited Mandarin text translated and send it to the defense. We can put that in evidence.
The court said, so this came up before. Any Mandarin needs to be translated. So you'll hold off on this and my ruling is pending, shall we say?
Mr. Ferguson said, okay. I'll just skip it.
Mr. Skirik said, Just one point, Your Honor. I believe the witness testified. Notwithstanding what Mr. Ferguson described as the province of this document. This witness testified she has no idea who created it or where it came from.
Mr. Ferguson said, that's not true. She said it was shared in a chat that was sent to her within the chat and she downloaded it from that.
Ms. Schrofa said, she never said she downloaded it in.
Mr. Ferguson said, right. If you want me to ask her.
Ms. Schrofa said, if I could just finish. She did not say she downloaded it and she did not say she created the document. We should just be clear about what the record is so far because, and we can always go back. But I don't believe there was any testimony whatsoever that she downloaded it.
Mr. Ferguson said, you're correct. I'm sorry.
The court said, but she recognizes it.
Ms. Schrofa said, I think she did say that. But she never said how that document was created, right? He asked her, who created the exhibit that's before you? So it's inaccurate to say she downloaded it.
Mr. Ferguson said, on the created, you don't have to create a document to be able to create a document. It was sent to her. I'm happy to ask her that.
The court said, so we'll wait on the translation, but to the extent you have other ones, if it was sent to her and she recognizes it, it's going to come in.
Mr. Skirik said, we're making a hearsay objection, but we understand, Your Honor.
The court said, this is the statement of conspirators, or alleged conspirators. Let's go.
Continued on next page. In open court.
The court said, you may continue.
Mr. Ferguson said, thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Ms. Loftus. Could we show the witness now what's marked as Government Exhibit VN13?
By Mr. Ferguson.
And Ms. Wu, is this another document that was shared in that chat group?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, Government offers Government Exhibit VN13.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, voir dire.
The court said you may. Voir dire examination.
By Mr. Skirik.
Ms. Wu, again, you didn't create this document, correct?
Several people created together.
So my question was, did you create the document?
I did some.
You created some part of this document.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if this was the final version of this document?
Can I move it?
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, if you want to scroll down slightly. You can keep scrolling, Ms. Loftus.
There is no grand total.
By Mr. Skirik.
Okay. Do you know what the source of this information is? Source of the information displayed in this document.
You see the file number? Those file numbers just different screenshots that Zhang Yongbing distributed to us.
I'm sorry. Could you explain that again?
The file number, that column, the file number column, MLP, all just.
Oh, file number. I see. Okay. Go ahead.
Each one stands for one screenshot. We did the translation.
Okay. And my question was, do you know what the source is of the financial information in this document?
What do you mean source? Source from the screenshots they gave us. The screenshots they asked from different farms.
Mr. Ferguson said, and was the first exhibit we looked at an example of those screenshots?
The witness said, yes.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, same objection.
The court said, you received this document in the chat, correct?
The witness said, yes.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit VN13 received in evidence.
Mr. Ferguson said, thank you, Your Honor. We could publish it to the jury, just quickly. We can scroll up to the top.
By Mr. Ferguson.
So Ms. Wu, do you see in row 1 it says note in red text?
Yes.
I'll just read the note. It says, note, the following amounts have either been transferred or were confirmed by farm owners to have been transferred to Maywind. Ms. Wu. Do you recall what, in receiver column it says Maywind Trading LLC? Do you recall what that was?
Should be one of the bank or bank accounts of the Phoenix farm. It's just used to receive loan program funds from that farm members.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, if we could scroll down towards the bottom, please. keep going. And Ms. Wu, do you see on this Excel it says the total is $39,872,527?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, all right. And Ms. Loftus, I'm sorry. If we could scroll back up quickly. Just because we covered this when the jury didn't see it. Under the column file number, the column B, Ms. Wu.
Yes.
Do you see how there's numbers with MLP in the entries beneath that column?
MLP.
Well, for example, in row 3 it says MLP 0011-7?
Yes.
Could you just explain again, while the jury can see it, what that is a reference to?
M means Maywind.
Continued on next page. By Mr. Ferguson.
These file numbers, are these references to the sorts of screenshots we looked at first?
Mr. Skirek said, objection.
The court said, sustained.
Yes.
The court said, you can't answer. The answer is stricken.
Could you explain what these are references to, Ms. Wu?
M means Maywind. L means lawsuit. P means Phoenix Farm. And that 4 numbers up these letters identify different farm. For example, 0011 just MOS Farm, Himalaya, New York MOS. And 7, before this. Zhang Yongbing asked his assistant to send table to different farms to let the farm owner or related person to fill that table. That table included 10 questions, such as, when did your farm started this loan program? When did your farm send the first amount to Maywind? How much total about your loan program, etc. etc. I cannot remember all of the 10 questions. So according to each farm's answers about that table, 1. Just question 1, 2 just question 2. Here, 7, just for the question 7. The screenshot about that question 7 included some money amount or bank information and just used those information to fill this form. Also, some farms also send some related bank statement wire transfer details.
Ms. Loftus, if we could show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit VN12.
Mr. Skirek said, Your Honor, same objection.
Mr. Ferguson said, I'll offer it in a moment, Your Honor. Is this the document that was shared in the chat group, Ms. Wu?
Yes.
And by the way, Ms. Wu, the documents that were shared in the chat group that we looked at. Did you provide these documents to the government?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit VN12.
Mr. Skirek said, same objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit VN12 received in evidence. By Mr. Ferguson.
All right. Ms. Loftus, maybe we can minimize the top bar so we can see more of this Excel. And we could scroll up, if we could just scroll down slightly. Now, Ms. Wu, I want to focus you on row 37. Where it says row 0 to 35 and it gives a grand total. What's the grand total there listed in blue?
Just added together the above transfer amount.
And does that say $106,489,540?
Yes.
Now I want to scroll back up slightly, Ms. Loftus. We can just look at one example. You can go up to row 17. So, Ms. Wu, this row says the amount is $30.8 million. Do you see that?
MMHM.
And it says sender, and then there's a question mark. And then it says receiver and there's a question mark, and the receiver is Abu Dhabi. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know why there are question marks here?
All this information from screenshot from Sarah. And in that screenshot, Sarah just lists these 3 to Abu Dhabi LANG service, but didn't mention where from, so question mark here. But we didn't have any details, for example, bank statement, wire transfer statement to show Abu Dhabi LAG service. So question mark.
Do you know why money was sent to Abu Dhabi?
I don't know.
You can take that down, Ms. Loftus. Now, Ms. Wu. Do you know how if at all your $20,000 was spent after you sent it to the MOS Farm?
I don't know.
Did you ever receive GTV stock for your loan?
No.
Did you ever receive interest payments for your loan?
No.
What, if anything, Ms. Wu, did Miles Guo say in his broadcast about using investor money for himself?
No.
What did he say?
He said nobody can touch our money, even a penny safe, all safe.
If you had known Miles Guo used investor money for personal expenses, would you have invested in the farm loan program?
Mr. Skirik said, objection.
The court said you may answer.
No.
Would you have invested in anything he promoted?
Mr. Skirik said, objection.
The court said you may answer.
No.
Ms. Wu, did there come a time as you mentioned before when you asked for a refund of the farm loan program money you sent?
September 2022.
And we'll talk about the timing, but did you get a refund?
Yes.
Did the refund include any interest?
No.
Did the refund include any GTV stock?
No.
When you requested your refund, who did you talk to about that in September 2022?
First I contact G-Series volunteer in the MOS Farm. And she said she would contact Xia Qidong about this and then let me wait. I waited several weeks. Nothing happened. So I contact that volunteer again. And the volunteer said maybe Xia Qidong forgot about that. And she would ask him again. And later, Xia Qidong contacted me through email, and we talked several times. He asked some question, also let me sign a refund agreement about my bank account. And then he said he would give me a paper check, so later I got a paper check.
We'll come back to the timing of when you requested it. But let me ask, Ms. Wu, did there come a time when you sent money to G clubs?
October 2020.
How much did you send to G clubs?
10,000.
Where did you send that money?
G Clubs Operating, LLC.
And what was the name on the account that you used to send the money to G Club?
Joint account.
And, Ms. Wu, why did you send $10,000 to G Club?
GTV stock.
Why would you think you would get GTV stock by sending money to G Clubs?
Miles Guo said.
Where did Miles Guo say that?
In his video, maybe several videos.
Did you get GTV shares?
No.
What benefits, if any, did you get from your G Club's membership?
I didn't get anything.
What's G Fashion, Ms. Wu?
Miles Guo created that website to sell fashion such as clothes, jewelry.
And what connection, if any, was there between G Fashion and G Clubs?
If you have G Club membership, you can get some kind of discount when you make purchase of G Fashion.
Did you ever buy G Fashion?
No.
Why not?
I don't like it, not my style, and ridiculously expensive.
So, Ms. Wu, why did you pay $10,000 for a G Club's membership?
GTV stock.
Mr. Skirik said, objection, asked and answered.
The court said, overruled.
Ms. Wu, did you ever request a refund of the money you sent to G Clubs?
Yes.
Around when did you do that?
December 2022.
You mentioned you requested a refund of the farm loan in September 2022 earlier?
Yes.
Why did you wait until December of 2022 to ask for G Club refund?
Before the G Club refund request, actually, I asked for H-Coin refund.
And so what was the timing? If you could walk us through the timing of your refund request. And we'll talk about H-Coin in a moment.
I felt loan program may be the easiest one to ask for refund, so I did it first.
And why did you think the farm loan program would be easiest?
Before I heard Xia Qidong was under government investigation and more investigation put on him. And I got a chance to translate some emails among Xia Qidong and some other MOS members. In those emails, they discuss about the loan program refund. At that time in those emails Xia Qidong behave a little reasonable. So I felt a good sign for me to go ahead.
And why didn't you ask for refunds from all the investment projects at the same time?
I was afraid they'd just expel me from the farm, I would got nothing.
And why were you concerned about being expelled from the farm for asking for refunds?
They do this. They did this a lot.
What did alliance members call people who were expelled from the farms that way after asking for refunds?
Mr. Skirik said, objection.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
CCP spy.
Ms. Wu, to bring you back to the G Club's refund request, how did you request your G Club's refund?
I asked the farm first, but the farm said none of their business. I should go to G Clubs to ask them. So I log on G Club and ask the online agent. Then G Club send me email to let me fill a refund request form. I filled it and submitted it, and nothing happened till now.
How often, if at all, were you emailing G Clubs?
In about a year, I wrote to them every day.
Did you ever get an answer?
Machine answers.
Do you recall what the machine answer said?
Our staff will review your request, something like that.
Ms. Wu, did you ever get your G Club's money, the $10,000 back?
No.
Did you ever get, for this money transfer, did you ever get any shares in GTV or any other company?
No.
Ms. Wu, what was the H-coin quota?
It is complicated formula to calculate the number of H-coins you should get according to your previous investment, including your Rule of Law Foundation donation.
What was the price of each H-coin in someone's H-coin quota?
10 cents each coin.
Ms. Loftus, if we could show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit VN 37. What's this document? Ms. Wu?
H-coin agreement.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit VN 37.
Mr. Skirik said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit VN 37 received in evidence.
Is this your H-coin agreement, Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Which farm was it with?
MOS Farm.
And Ms. Loftus, if we could zoom on the middle paragraph there, the larger paragraph. I'm not going to read the entirety of the paragraph, Ms. Wu, but how many H-coins were you in your H-coin quota?
44,500.
And what was the price of each of those H-coin?
10 cents each.
If we could zoom out and go to page 6, Ms. Loftus, please.
Yes. Did you sign this document, Ms. Wu?
What was the date you signed it?
October 28, 2021.
Who else signed it?
Xia Qidong.
Let's zoom out, Ms. Loftus. And if we can go back up slightly to page 2. And if we could zoom on paragraph 5 through the bottom. I'll just read a little bit of this, Ms. Wu. It says, a material term of this letter of agreement is that you hereby irrevocably consent fully and indefinitely complying with the following warranties and undertakings. You warrant and confirm that you are a member of the HF. And therefore subscribe to the rules and ideology of the HF. And we can zoom out, go to page 3, please. If we could zoom on the 1 through 4 Roman numerals. I'll read these, Ms. Wu. You undertake to not taking any action, endorsing any action or facilitating any action. Whether directly or indirectly anything which is intended to or goes against the core values and ideals of HF. I'll skip ahead a little bit and reading 2. It says, you undertake to not take any action and skip ahead slightly which is intended to or could potentially hurt or damage the mission and ideology of HF. Number 3 says, you undertake to not demonstrate skip ahead a little bit any support or benefit in any form to the Chinese Communist Party or CCP or any CCP officials. Number 4 says, you undertake to not take any action skipping ahead which is intended to or could potentially hurt or damage the reputation or operation of the exchange. Ms. Wu, what's your understanding of what these means?
Nonsense.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wu.
I feel this is nonsense. I don't understand why write these terms.
What's your understanding of what happens if you criticize the movement?
Mr. Skirik said, asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
If we could zoom out. If we could go back down to the signature page, page 6. Now, Ms. Wu. You signed this October 28, 2021. Did you send money to pay for your H-coin quota?
Actually, I paid for the H-coin in April 2021. I don't remember if I remember correctly. I don't remember at that time I had this agreement.
And about how many did you pay in April 2021?
Less than $5,000.
Did you send withdrawn? We can go ahead and take this down for now, Ms. Loftus. Where did you send your a little less than $5,000 for the H-coin quota?
They gave me a personal account to send my money into.
When you say they gave you, who gave you the personal account?
Volunteer, G-Series volunteer.
And what was the name on the account that you used to send the H-coin quota money?
I don't remember, joint account or my own account.
Ms. Wu, why didn't you send the H-coin quota money directly to the Himalaya Exchange?
They didn't give us any account related to Himalaya Exchange.
What was the Alliance Foundation?
They said later, very later. Just this is the foundation to hold our H-coins and do the digital currency operation to get better profit for us.
And did you, as a general matter, Ms. Wu, what's your understanding of who could invest directly? Buy H-coins directly through the Himalaya Exchange?
Should be farm members who are not in America and Japan, maybe Canada. I don't remember. But definitely USA and Japan.
What, if any, commissions did you have to pay by not sending money directly to Himalaya Exchange?
5%.
Where would that 5% commission go?
I don't know.
Ms. Wu, why did you send this money in April 2021 to buy the H-coin quota?
Miles Guo said that this digital currency would be the leading digital currency in the world in the future. At that time, already many countries including famous financial institutions may interested in or may already bought those H-coins for themselves. So take your seats. This your chance, and then they used our previous investment to calculate the quota, so why not?
When you used the phrase take your seats, that's something Miles Guo said. What was your understanding of what take your seats meant? What are you referring to?
Not everyone has this chance. You are so lucky to have this chance, so you cannot lose it anyway because you will never have this chance in your life anymore.
What, if anything, did Guo say about H-coins and gold?
Excuse me.
What, if anything, did Guo say about H-coins and gold?
He said Himalaya Exchange has 20% gold as the reserve.
And was this 20% gold reserve important to you?
Yes.
Could you explain to the jury why that was important to you?
First, if financial institution has this ability to buy 20% gold as the reserve, this institution's financial ability should be very good. And second, I have the impression that many banks in the world, including Federal Reserve, they all have gold as their reserve, so this sounds so formal.
Ms. Wu, did you ever have an account at the Himalaya Exchange?
No.
To your knowledge, were there ever H-coins held in your name or your account on the Himalaya Exchange?
No.
Did you ever request that your H-coin quota money be returned?
Yes.
And around when did you do that?
After the loan program refund, about October 2022.
Did you get that money back?
Most part after almost half year.
And how much money did you receive back approximately?
4,500, around that.
Did you get back the 5% commission?
No.
Did Miles Guo pay back what you lost?
No.
Ms. Wu, you said at the beginning of your testimony you're no longer a follower of Miles Guo. What caused you to have doubts about the movement?
First, the SEC, the settlement of GTV. Before SEC declared this, Miles Guo and his helpers never mentioned anything about this. Then the translation for that lawsuit. I got so many screenshots show so many things. For example, Sarah Wei opened more than 170 bank accounts. I just felt so weird about this. Is that normal? I don't know. Because at this time, I still trusted MOS and this organization, but I just felt some kind of a weird things here. Also before that I already felt not that free speech inside this group. People shouldn't criticize MOS and people around him, close to him. You should be careful about what you said and what you wrote. So then later, I just heard government begin to investigate some people, such as Xia Qidong. Also, they were so reluctant to sign back these contracts to us, although those contracts have a lot of flaws inside. I don't know why. So little by little. They send people to protest in front of homes and workplaces of those people who criticize MOS with invoking pictures and language. Sometimes it turned to violence. Some people were sent to hospital because of this. Also, MOS just use volunteers to death. I don't know why. Just the moments after moments, events by events. Never stopped. Just left you no time to think others, no time to get touch with others. I heard MOS said by himself in his video. One volunteer was sent to hospital because of the overstress of the volunteer work. But MOS said we shouldn't like CCP, just the manner of abusing people. This kind of abusing. I don't know why. Just volunteer, right? Why so hard? Also for H coins. They said this would be the most secured digital currency in the world. One day they said, millions or tens of millions H coins disappear, missing. They couldn't locate them, okay. Also, for the H coin lockup. Before they promised for us who put those H coins into famous digital currency institution. We could redeem our H coins at any time as long as that institution already have our coins at least 6 months. Never happened. Actually, several months later. I don't remember exact time MOS said they needed to lock our H coins at least 3 years. Nobody can touch it. And before the arrest of MOS, one Iron Blood group member said we needed to lock up our H coins maybe at least 10 years. A lot of other things. Just little by little.
Ms. Wu, to go back to a couple of things you said. One thing was the H coin. Just so we understand the last thing you were discussing, what was the H coin lockup?
Just they didn't want people to get their money back from H coin. This is my understanding. So they don't want you touch H coin. You cannot get any money from them.
You also mentioned free speech and protest. What sorts of protests did you watch?
I didn't watch it, just listen to what they said about this protest. For example, SEC protest. One person who criticized MOS a lot who is in Canada, they protest 3 times. Each time, 10 days, 20 days. I don't remember exactly. And they using a lot of invoking pictures, also including neighbors, friends, family.
And what, if anything, did the alliance say about people or call people who were being protested?
Mr. Skirik said, asked and answered.
The court said. Overruled. You can answer.
You mean MOS call them?
Yeah, what did MOS call them?
CCP spy.
And what effect did these sorts of this about CCP spies? What effect did that and the protest have on your doubts?
Mr. Skirik said, objection, asked and answered.
The court said. Overruled. You may answer.
Why so many CCP spies around us? I don't know. I feel that's ridiculous.
Now, Ms. Wu, did MOS ever talk about being targeted by the CCP?
Yes.
What sorts of things did he say?
He said he was okay. He said the CCP wanted to kill him. He said CCP arrest his family and almost to him, but he escaped it. He said CCP seized his property, his assets. Something like that.
Ms. Wu, if it were true that Miles Guo was targeted by the CCP, does that change your view of the investment projects?
No.
Does it change your view of the movement?
No.
Why doesn't it change your view?
This movement just a scam. I don't think it's related anything to the CCP. Also, if somebody is anti-CCP, it doesn't mean this guy could scam somebody else. That's different things. You cannot use this anti-CCP to do something illegal.
What do you mean by that?
Just, for example, you scam money, now you said you scam money for anti-CCP. I just cannot understand. If you anti-CCP and you scam money, you think you better than the CCP?
Ms. Wu, overall did you make money or lose money from your investment?
I lost some.
How much did you lose approximately?
Around $15,000.
Did Miles Guo personally pay back the $15,000?
Mr. Skirik said, objection.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
No.
Did you ever ask him one-on-one to do that?
No.
Were you ever in one-on-one communication with him?
No.
Ms. Wu, sitting here today, are you still anti-CCP?
Yes.
Do you still trust Miles Guo?
No.
Why not?
Mr. Skirik said, asked and answered, Your Honor.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
He just a liar. He's very good at acting and cheating, but I feel he's not honest, reliable, credible. Not a decent guy to be trusted in any way.
Mr. Ferguson said, no further questions.
The court said, cross-examination.
Cross-examination. By Mr. Skirik.
Ms. Wu, you were born in China, is that right?
Yes.
You came to the U.S. in 2001.
Yes.
And you have a postgraduate degree in computer science, right?
Yes, master.
A master's in computer science. So you worked as a computer programmer?
Yes.
And are you retired now?
I retired myself.
Fair enough. And when did you retire?
2010.
And your husband, he still works?
Yes.
And he works as a computer programmer?
Yes.
And where does he work?
A medicine company.
That's okay. I'll move on. You said you first heard of Miles Guo in 2018, right?
Yes.
Because you saw some of his videos online.
Yes.
And that was on YouTube.
Yes.
And I believe you testified that in 2020 you started watching Mr. Guo's videos just about every day.
From 1-2 times a week to every day, not from the beginning every day.
Okay. But up to a point every day.
Yes.
And is it fair to say that his videos were anti-CCP in 2020?
He said something about CCP badness, that's it, and some kind of a gossip inside the CCP.
Right. The gossip you refer to is, he was exposing what he believed were some of the secrets of the CCP. Right.
Yes.
And now you were already anti-CCP before you were introduced to Mr. Guo's videos, right?
At that time actually I maybe inside was, but I didn't realize that clearly.
And you had done some of your own research on the Chinese Communist Party around this time, right?
The court said around what time?
Mr. Skirik said, around 2020, Your Honor.
Actually before that, from my family's history and experience, I already notice a lot about that. That is why when I watched Miles Guo video, I thought he said something true.
And your family experience was partially based on the fact that your parents were ill, right?
My parents' illness, you mean?
Yes.
Not only about that.
Well, in part is my question.
Yes.
And you felt that they were not treated well in China when they were ill, right?
Yes.
And that was part of why you became anti-CCP even in your mind, if not in action, right?
Yeah, part.
What was the other part?
My family's history.
And when you say your family history, do you mean something different than your parents' illness?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you mean by that?
My father was sacrificed in fighting of the CCP when he was young.
Okay. Now, when you began participating in the movement, do you understand what I mean by the movement?
Rules of law movement?
Yes.
Okay.
When you began participating in the movement, you didn't expect that your participation would lead to the overthrow of the CCP, right?
Miles Gwa said.
I'm asking, ma'am, what you thought, what you believed.
If can do that, good. If cannot, at least do something.
Did you believe that your participation would overthrow the CCP?
Maybe.
Did you believe that the rules of law movement could overthrow the CCP?
Maybe.
Okay. Fair enough. But you didn't necessarily expect that it would overthrow the CCP, right?
Anything possible, so who knows?
My question is, you didn't necessarily expect that to be the case.
The court said. Asked and answered. Move on.
In fact, you recall telling the government that you participated because you thought it would help wake people up, correct?
At this time, yes.
Help them to wake up to how the CCP operates.
At least to let people know more.
Sure. And help them understand the truth, right?
Yes.
Now do you still have family in China?
You mean close family, not relatives?
Any family?
Cousin, uncle, something like that.
And how about your husband, does he have family in China as well?
Yes.
Do you speak with them? Are you in touch with them?
My husband's family, actually they have dialect I could not understand. Their language. I could not understand. They have some dialects.
Have you visited anyone in China since you left in 2001?
2001, yes.
And when did you return to China?
I went there a lot of times.
You visited a lot of times.
Yes.
I just want to go through them. Tell me when you visited.
Almost every year.
About once a year since 2001.
Yes. Maybe not the first 2 years, but after that.
And so in the year 2000, you visited at least one.
2000?
I'm sorry, 2020.
Not COVID-19. I mean before COVID-19.
Before COVID-19. Okay. Fair enough. In 2019, you visited at least once.
Yes.
Was it more than once?
Sometime more than once.
And how about since COVID, have you been back?
Since?
MMHM.
My father dead. I don't want to go back.
So you haven't been back since COVID?
Yes.
In preparation for your testimony here today, you met with the government lawyers and agents on a number of occasions, right?
Several times.
Several times.
Yes.
Do you remember how many times?
I didn't count it.
Well, let's see if we can bill out a list. Do you recall having a telephone interview with the FBI at the end of November of 2022?
2022, maybe. I cannot remember the time.
Do you remember when the first time was that you spoke to members of the FBI or the Department of Justice?
I don't remember, but, yes.
Approximately 2022.
Yeah, 2022, I don't remember the time.
End of 2022.
You mean twice?
Meaning toward the end of 2022.
Maybe.
How about in January of 2024?
What happened?
I'm asking you, did you meet with representative of the U.S. government?
Maybe.
Mr. Ferguson here who questioned you earlier today by WebEx.
I don't remember, January or February. I'm not sure.
What about in April of 2024, did you have an in-person interview with Mr. Ferguson?
You mean online?
No, an interview with him in person.
Face to face?
Either way.
Yes.
And then again in mid-May, May 17th.
Mid-May 17?
MMHM.
Face to face, in person?
Either way, ma'am. We'll just say any kind of meeting, whether it was virtual.
I just remember.
Just let me finish. Whether it's an in-person meeting or virtual meeting or phone call. That's what I mean by meeting with the government.
I don't remember May 17th, no.
You don't remember meeting with them in May.
I met Mr. Ferguson in May. I can't remember that time, because we met May 26th. That's just around Memorial Day, so I can remember that.
That was my next fixed question. So, fine, you met with him then. And then again on June 11th, right? 2 days ago.
Today 13? Yes.
And then again yesterday in preparation for testimony.
Yesterday?
Did you meet with him yesterday?
Said hello, is that kind of a meeting?
That I think would qualify as a meeting. You said hello.
Yes. When you just meet somebody say hello, that's still normal.
Great. That's a total of 7 meeting, right?
I don't know. If you say 7, okay 7. I did not count it.
Either way you met with him on numerous occasions, right?
Numerous, no, several times.
Okay. And in addition during the time that you met with him, and even before. You forwarded the government numerous emails, right?
Several, should not be numerous.
About how many would you say?
I don't remember.
You don't remember, but it was several, not numerous.
You see, you cannot submit as many. You can't because they limit the size and the number you can submit. So definitely not numerous.
Okay. So you forwarded this information to try to help them, right?
Help everybody.
You forwarded the information to try to help the U.S. government, right?
Mr. Ferguson said, asked and answered.
The court said, well, you've gone from him to the U.S. government, so you may answer.
I think help everybody.
Are you helping Miles Guo?
Yeah.
You are.
Just make him stop to do something bad.
Okay. Noted. Now, you testified on direct about making an investment in GTV, right?
Through VOG.
And you invested $14,000, right?
Yes.
And that was an investment with Sarah Wei, right?
Yes.
And this wasn't the first time that you had purchased stock, right?
Can I just understand, Sarah Wei kind of brokerage, stock brokerage? If this way, this is the first time.
My question was different. This wasn't the first time that you purchased stock, right? You have other investments. You have other stock investments, right?
Purchase online, yeah.
Now, you knew that there was some risk associated with purchasing a stock, right?
Yes.
Every investment has some risk, right?
Yes.
And, in fact, even Mr. Gui, you recall him saying that investing is always a little risky, right?
But he also said he guarantee every penny.
I would like you to listen to my question.
Mr. Ferguson said, Your Honor, she's answering the question.
Mr. Skirik said, it's non-responsive, Your Honor.
The court said, just stick to the question and don't offer additional question.
Mr. Skirik said, could we please have the court reporter read back the question?
Record was read.
The court said, you may answer.
As far as I can remember, he said this very late, not at the very beginning.
But he said it, right, you remember him saying it.
He asked about our investment. At that time he didn't say this.
Okay. Now, you never spoke with Mr. Guo directly about your investment before you made it, right?
Yes.
You only communicated with Sarah Wei, right?
Yes.
Or people who worked for her, right?
Yes.
And, in fact, you sent your $14,000 to Ms. Wei, right?
Yes.
And as you testified to on direct, I believe you sent it in a few different transactions.
Yes.
And those transactions were between approximately May 21st and 29th, 2020, right?
Yes.
And some of those transfers were in fact to Ms. Wei's personal bank account, correct?
She gave that account to me.
She gave you that account and you sent it to her.
Yes.
And some were to a VOG bank account, right?
Yes.
And the ones that went to the VOG bank account, again to be clear, Ms. Wei told you to send those there. Right.
Yes.
Now Mr. Guo didn't provide any specifics about where to send that money, right?
Yes.
All the specific instructions came from Ms. Wei.
But Ms. Wei and a lot of other guys, they made a lot of videos in which they said, it was Miles Guo who gave us this opportunities, so we should show our gratitude to Miles Guo forever. And Miles Guo will create more similar opportunities for US to invest in later.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, move to strike as non-responsive.
The court said, so once again, if you listen carefully to the question and only answer what is being asked. So if he asks you what is your favorite color, then you can answer whatever it is, blue, red, yellow. But you wouldn't say, and my favorite flower is the rose. Don't add additional information. So the prior answer is stricken.
All the specific instructions about where to send money came from Sarah Wei, right?
Yes.
Now, do you recall when the GTV private placement closed?
June.
June 2nd.
I don't remember.
Can we just please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit C9 and go to the June 2nd, 2020 entry? I believe it's page 6. Now, Ms. Wu, do you see what's displayed in the screen in front of you?
You mean the picture?
Correct.
Yes.
Do you recognize that as a screen capture from a video?
Miles Guo.
Do you recognize that as a screen capture from a video?
Maybe, yes.
Do you recognize this as a video that Mr. Guo posted when the GTV private placement ended in June of 2020?
I don't remember that date, but he did that.
But you do recall this video?
Yes.
You recall seeing a video?
Maybe the same, maybe the same. I'm not sure, but yes.
Now, you testified earlier that during this period you were watching Mr. Guo's videos pretty regularly. Right.
Yes.
So you recall seeing this video. Do you believe you saw it around the time that it was posted?
You said June 2nd, but I don't remember. I just remember in June.
So, ma'am, I'm not asking you about the specific date. My question is, do you remember seeing it around the time that it was posted?
Yes.
Thank you. We can take that down. Now. You testified that you were refunded 92% of the $14,000 that you sent to Sarah Wei, is that right?
From SEC, yes.
I want to go back to Sarah Wei for a second. Can you tell us who is Sarah Wei?
She is the earliest, maybe, I'm not sure. But from my understanding, she is the earliest person who cooperated with Miles Guo.
And did a time come when Sarah Wei had a falling out with Mr. Guo?
2021, I guess. I cannot remember exactly. That is why there was that lawsuit MOS Farm to Phoenix.
Thank you. We'll get there in a second. So you do recall a time when they had a falling out?
Approximately, not exactly.
Again, ma'am, I'm not asking you the exact time. I'm just asking you if you recall that they had a falling out.
Yes.
Now, I believe you just started to talk about a lawsuit that resulted from that falling out, correct?
The lawsuit you mean result from a fallen breakup?
From the breakup, yes, that followed the breakup.
Yes, follow.
And that was a lawsuit that the farms brought against Sarah Wei and her farm, right?
Sarah Wei, at that time, already broke up with Miles Guo. So I'm not sure if Miles Guo at that time still keep her at that farm leader.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, move to strike as non-responsive.
Mr. Ferguson said, Your Honor, I think she's trying to answer it very carefully but answering the question.
Mr. Skirik said, Your Honor, the answer is totally not responsive to the question.
The court said, the answer is stricken.
The lawsuit was brought by the farms against Sarah Wei's farm and Sarah Wei.
Yes.
Now, you're aware that the Mountain of Spices farm, MOS Farm, I believe you referred to it on direct, sued Sarah Wei for stealing funds that supporters had put into the farm loans program, right?
Should be.
Yes.
Yes.
And that lawsuit was in 2021, right?
Yes.
And where was that lawsuit, if you remember?
I think Texas.
And you provided translation services to the MOS Farm in support of that lawsuit, right?
Yes.
And the result of that lawsuit, withdrawn. You're aware of the result of that lawsuit?
No.
So you're not aware that the result of that lawsuit was a default judgment against Ms. Wei?
No, but I.
Mr. Ferguson said, "Objection, Your Honor." She said she doesn't know.
The court said, asked and answered.
Mr. Skirek said, Your Honor, I believe she was still in the process of answering it. It may have jogged her recollection.
Mr. Ferguson said, "That's not correct." She said no.
The court said, the answer was no.
Now, you were asked some questions about some government exhibits by Mr. Ferguson earlier today, right?
Today, no.
You don't recall testifying on direct and being shown those spreadsheets?
Oh, you mean here, yes.
Yes, here, today just a few minutes ago. Okay. Now, did you have an agreement with the MOS Farm to provide translation services in connection with that lawsuit against Ms. Wei?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson said, "Your Honor, may we have a sidebar?"
The court said, all righty. Step up.
Continued on next page. At sidebar.
Mr. Ferguson said, "I'm not sure where this line of questioning is going, but the reason for my request, Your Honor, is the witness signed an NDA with the MOS Farm. And I assume, but I just wanted to confirm. We're not going anywhere where Mr. Skirek is going to suggest she's going to get sued or retaliated against for breaching the NDA. I assume that's not the case. I don't know where we're going with it."
Mr. Skirek said, You assume correct. That's not where I'm going with this.
The court said, okay.
Continued on next page. In open court, jury present.
The court said, you may continue.
By Mr. Skirek.
So that agreement that you had with the MOS Farm was to provide translation services, right?
Yes.
And it was to provide translation services in support of the MOS Farm's lawsuit against Ms. Wei.
Yes.
And that's why you had access to the spreadsheets that you testified about earlier today, right?
Yes.
Now, if we could please bring up Government Exhibit GXVN 12. If we could scroll up a little, please. Or down. That's fine. Thank you. Now, Ms. Wu. You recognize this as the document that you looked at a few minutes ago when Mr. Ferguson was asking you questions.
Yes.
And I'd like to just focus you on the line 17 that Mr. Ferguson focused you on, where there's a reference to Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
You see that?
Yes.
Now, you don't know that any money was actually sent to Abu Dhabi, right?
From that screenshot, the money amount on that screenshot.
My question is, you don't know yourself that money was actually sent to Abu Dhabi, right?
We just do the calculation, so I don't know.
Right. You just did the translation, right?
Calculation here, calculation for the number.
Sure. Now, there's also a question mark next to Abu Dhabi, right?
Yes.
Do you know why that's there?
Because Sarah didn't provide us the detail, just that screenshot for the amount and the destination.
So you didn't have the details, and we don't know if money was actually sent to Abu Dhabi, right?
Mr. Ferguson said, "Objection to form."
The court said, compound question. If you want to break it up.
So you didn't have the details, right?
At least I haven't. I don't know others.
Right. You didn't have the details, right?
Yes.
The court said, asked and answered.
And the whole point of putting together this information that's in this spreadsheet was to support the lawsuit against Ms. Wei. right?
Yes.
And the other spreadsheets that we looked at were also for the purpose of supporting the lawsuit against Ms. Wei. Right.
Yes.
Because she had been accused of taking the money, right?
Yes.
Mr. Skirek said, Your Honor, I was going to move to another topic. This may be a good stopping point if we're doing 11:30.
The court said, we're going to go to noon.
Mr. Skirek said, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that.
By Mr. Skirek.
We can take that down. Now, you testified earlier today that you were a member of the MOS Farm, right?
Yes.
And approximately when did you join the MOS Farm?
Maybe May or June 2020.
And that farm was located here in New York, right?
Yes.
And at the time you joined in May or June of 2020, you began doing volunteer work, right?
Yes.
And you did the translation work that we just talked about.
Not this one at the beginning.
What kind of work did you do at the beginning?
There was a translation group in the farm, so I joined that group to do some news translation they ask it.
Any other kinds of volunteer work?
Modify some other people's articles.
And were there other people doing volunteer work?
You mean what other?
Other members of the farm doing volunteer work?
A lot of, yeah.
A lot of people. What kinds of volunteer work were other people doing?
Video.
Video recording.
Just like media. They also had workout group. I don't know what they do, just workout, some exercises. Workout group, religion group, patrol group. Just to do patrol to see if somebody said something not good, just delayed or maybe expel from other farm.
The court said, what was the name of that group?
The witness said, Patrol.
The court said, how do you spell that?
The witness said, Patrol.
The court said, patrol.
The witness said, Patrol.
And financial group, legal group, education group.
And what did the education group do?
Educate people.
Can you explain that any further?
I don't know. I don't know that group, what they were doing. I don't know.
Anything else?
Writing, but the writing is not like any other group, just a lot of groups had writing group inside.
Makes sense. Now, a time came as you testified on direct that you made a loan to the farm, right?
Yes.
And that was in August of 2020.
Yes.
For $20,000, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Fergensen showed you the loan agreement, right?
Yes.
So if we could just pull up that loan agreement GXVN 39. Now. You testified that you can't recall if you read the loan agreement before you signed it, right?
I really don't remember because it's so hurry at that time. I read it long time ago.
Sure. But you can't recall whether it was before or after that you read it, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible that you read it before, right?
The court said, don't ask her to speculate.
Mr. Skirek said, it's a logical conclusion.
The court said, don't testify.
You also testified that you recall Mr. Guo saying at some point that the proceeds from these loans would go to purchase GTV stock. Right.
Yes.
Now, don't you recall that he said that after you signed this agreement?
I don't remember, that long time ago.
Now. Isn't it true you recall Mr. Guo saying that the money loan through the loan program was for the farm?
He said interest to the farm. I don't know what does that mean, just I remember it like this.
Mr. Skirek said, Your Honor, move to strike as non-responsive.
The court said, well, I think the first sentence is responsive with respect to interest, and so the second part will be stricken.
Now. You recall telling the government that you understood that the farm could use the money in any project it wanted. Right.
Xia Qidong said that.
My question is, do you recall telling the government that that was your understanding?
I don't remember.
Okay. Let's see if we can refresh your recollection. Can we put up for the parties and the witness 3620-10? Page 3. Now, Ms. Wu. If you could just read what's in front of you or should be in front of you momentarily to yourself, not out loud. And let me know when you're done.
Yes.
Does that remind you that that is in fact what you told the government?
Yes.
So it is true that you told the government that it was your understanding that the farm could use the money to invest in any project that it wanted. Right.
Yes, but not the contract time.
Speaking of the contract, why don't we go back to the contract? If we could just zoom in on 1A in the contract, use of proceeds. Now, this sentence says, use of proceeds. The loan proceeds advanced under this agreement is for the general working capital purposes of the borrower. Do you see that?
Yes.
Who is the borrower under this agreement?
MOS Farm.
We can take that down or just zoom back out. Keep the exhibit up, but zoom back out. If we could go to the interest rate section. And this says that the interest rate would be 3% per annum on the loan amount payable in full on the final maturity date. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then if we can zoom in on final maturity date. It says, final maturity date 36 months from the effective date. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you understand that maturity date means when the loan payment becomes due?
Yes.
And so the loan payment isn't due before the maturity date, right?
Yes.
Now, you expected to get interest on the loan, right?
Because at that time, somebody already got the 3% when I asked for the refund.
Mr. Skirik said, move to strike as non-responsive. You can't tell me what other people told you. I'm asking what your understanding was at the time.
The court said, sustained.
I understand it, so I just feel unfair why someone else.
I'm sorry. Can you speak up?
I understand it.
You understood that it was for interest, right? The farm loan was for interest.
So why not me?
That's my question. So you expected interest.
So, I don't want it.
Mr. Skirik said, move to strike, Your Honor. I'm asking you if at the time you signed this agreement you expected to earn interest.
Actually, at that time just the 3% surprised me, because before Miles was said 6%.
Mr. Skirik said, again, Your Honor. Move to strike.
The court said, both answers are stricken. I want you to listen carefully to the question, and you may read back the question, and answer just what's being asked.
Record was read.
Not really.
Ma'am, when you met with the government, do you recall telling them that you were upset that you didn't get interest?
No.
Let's see if we can help with that. Can we please pull up, Honor?
Mr. Ferguson said, objection to the commentary, Your.
The court said, don't testify. Ask her if there is anything that would refresh her recollection.
Would it be possible if we could show you a document to help refresh your memory?
I'm not sure.
Mr. Skirik said, may we, Your Honor?
The court said you may.
Please pull up 3620 to 10 at 3. While we're waiting for that. It was your impression that others had been paid interest, right?
I knew some, yes.
And based on that you expected to be paid interest?
No.
You didn't expect to be paid interest. Others got it, but you didn't expect to get interest.
The court said, asked and answered.
Now, isn't it true that under the loan agreement the loan amount and any accrued interest is paid on that maturity date? Right.
Mr. Ferguson said, asked and answered.
The court said, you may answer that question. Actually, no. I do recall you're asking the question. So the objection is sustained.
Now, Ms. Wu, you sought to terminate the loan agreement before the maturity date, right?
Yes, I sought it. Somebody did it, so I sought it.
In fact, you did terminate the loan agreement before the maturity date, right?
Yes, follow examples.
And based on that, you're not entitled to any interest, right? We just read the contract, right?
Yeah.
Is it your understanding that based on your early termination you are not entitled to interest?
Mr. Ferguson said, to the extent it doesn't call for a legal conclusion, no objection.
The court said, her understanding, but obviously not a legal conclusion. You may answer what your understanding is.
My understanding for that at that time when I asked for the refund. I just feel this is illegal, so I don't want the 3% interest anymore, that illegal money.
You testified on direct that you didn't get your 3% interest, right?
I said that because they didn't show any intention to give me, so I didn't get, and I also don't want that.
Continued on next page.
Mr. Skirik said, move to strike, Your Honor.
Mr. Ferguson said, Your Honor, we've covered it as well, so maybe we can move.
The court said, the answer is stricken.
By Mr. Skirik.
Now you entered into a release of the loan agreement, right?
Yes.
And the farm in fact refunded your loan, you received all $20,000 back, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now nowhere in the agreement that we looked at, that we just reviewed, does it say that you would get GTV stock for your $20,000 loan to the farm, right?
They used the GTV stock to allure me to go with this loan program, so yes. I understand no GTV on the contract, but
it doesn't say GTV stock anywhere in the contract, right?
So that is a scam.
Right. And then in fact, you recall telling the government during one of your meetings with them that Mr. Guo said that the farm money is for the farm. Not just TV, just, pardon me, withdrawn. You recall telling the government during one of your meetings with them that Mr. Guo said that the farm loan money is for the farm.
Mr. Ferguson said, I believe asked and answered.
Not for GTV.
Mr. Ferguson said, I believe asked and answered.
The court said, I'll allow her to answer the question.
Not on the contract time, later they said that.
My question is, do you recall telling the government that that's your understanding at the time?
I told the government, but I didn't at that time. I should tell the government they just said this later, the contract, so.
That's not what you told the government, right?
The court said, she's testified as to what she told the government.
Because the government didn't ask that.
Mr. Skirik said, there's no question pending, Your Honor.
Mr. Ferguson said, well, then he's just arguing with the witness, so.
The court said, move on.
Now you testified earlier that you invested through a company called Wonder Invest, is that right?
Yes.
And that company was set up by your husband, right?
Yes.
Now did you talk to your husband about the farm loan before you made it?
Yes.
Did your husband review the contract?
The Wonder Invest is mine at that time.
Ma'am, my question is, did your husband review the contract?
This is my contract. Why I need my husband to review the contract? I don't understand this question.
It's a simple question. He either did or didn't review it. So my question is, did he review it at the time?
I told him by myself. He didn't review, but I told him.
Okay. But you told him about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you testified that, withdrawn. Now you actually received your refund of the farm loan money before you made your first complaint to the government. Is that right?
Yes. I don't remember the time I complained to the government. It may be, yes.
Mr. Skirik said, okay. Now I'd just like to go back briefly to GXVN 39. And if we could go to the addendum that's at the end of this document. And scroll to the bottom but excluding the last page. One more down, please. There we go.
By Mr. Skirik.
Now you recall being shown this document by Mr. Ferguson.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Ferguson pointed out that the loan agreement was signed in November of 2021 by a representative of the farm. Right.
Yes.
And this addendum is signed by you around the same time, right?
Yes.
Like 3 days later.
Yes.
Right. Mr. Skirik said, and if we go back to the first page of the addendum, please. And this addendum that you signed more than a year later, after signing the first loan contract. You testified you didn't review this one either.
Almost not.
So you did review it to some extent.
I just reviewed it where I should fill in for example, my name, the time.
Okay. And you reviewed it and you actually included and we're not going to display this. But you included a copy of your driver's license as well, right?
They ask it.
Sure. That's what was asked for, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you had the time to fill it in and make a copy of your driver's license. And now did you send this back by email?
Mr. Ferguson said, Your Honor, objection to testifying. If he has a question about that, he can ask it.
The court said, I'm waiting for the question.
The question is, did you return this by email?
I don't remember. Maybe to G-Service Volunteer.
The court said, what is that, G-Service Volunteer?
The witness said, oh sorry. G-Series, G-Series. A lot of G, GTV, G-Fashion, G-Club, it's all together G-Series.
The court said, please continue.
And so it's possible that you handed this in hard copy to another person.
No.
The court said, so don't ask her what might be possible. Ask her what happened.
Do you recall whether you did that? Did you hand it in hard copy to another person?
Not by hand. Not by hand.
Then how did you convey it, ma'am?
Mr. Ferguson said, asked and answered.
Mr. Skirek said, just trying to understand how it was sent back.
The court said, you've already asked the question.
So is it your testimony that at no point after signing this addendum you reviewed it more carefully?
No.
You never reviewed it?
I reviewed some.
Okay.
Just the 3%, like that.
Now you testified that there was some time pressure on you with respect to the original loan agreement. There wasn't any time pressure on you with respect to this addendum, was there?
Yeah.
There was.
My family issue. My family issue.
So there wasn't any time pressure put on you by Mr. Guo. Right.
Yes.
Right. No time pressure put on you by anybody at the farms, right?
They asked several days to return it.
Sure. Do you think several days is enough time to review a 4-page contract?
If carefully, one by one, word by word, not enough.
4 days isn't enough to review a 4-page contract.
Mr. Ferguson said, asked and answered.
The court said, asked and answered and don't testify.
Mr. Skirek said, okay. Okay. Now when did you, according to you, first review either the loan agreement or the addendum, in detail?
Can you repeat that again?
Sure.
The court said, are you asking when did she make a thorough review of the contract?
Mr. Skirek said, yes, Your Honor.
The court said, and the addendum?
Mr. Skirek said, correct, Your Honor.
The court said, okay. Go ahead.
You mean carefully review of this?
That's right. That's the question.
Not one by one. Maybe just some.
Mr. Skirek said, move to strike, Your Honor.
The court said, the answer is stricken. The question is when.
The witness said, when. Cannot remember when.
Okay. Did you ever review it carefully before you met with the prosecutors?
Yes.
When was that, approximately?
Around the time I asked a refund.
Around the time you asked, you planned to ask for a refund, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And were you surprised by what was in there?
Not exactly that surprised.
Yeah, not that surprised, right?
Because
Mr. Ferguson said, Your Honor.
A lot of people said something already about this contract.
Mr. Skirek said, okay. I'll move on. Now again, I'm going to change topics, Your Honor. Is now a good time or should we continue?
The court said, all right, yes. This is a fine time. It's 11:55, so you'll have your break. We'll return at 12:30. Remember not to discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't permit anyone to discuss the case in your presence. And don't read, watch, or listen to anything from any source that has anything to do with the subject matter of this trial. You may step out. Don't discuss your testimony.
Jury not present. Witness not present.
The court said, you may be seated. Do the parties want to raise anything before we return at 12:30?
Mr. Ferguson said, not from the government.
Mr. Skirik said, not from the defense, Your Honor.
The court said, all right.
Luncheon recess.